You are listening to the Waking Up to Purpose podcast with Lily Badcock in association with lilybadcock.com. What if every challenge you've ever faced was for a purpose? What if every perceived failure was in fact you stepping ever closer to the life you were born to live? I'm Lily Badcock, and I'm here to let you know that you were born with a divine purpose in your heart. And you're here because you know that's true. The process of awakening can be tough. Fired up and inspired one minute and then overwhelmed and lost the next. I've created this podcast to share with you every aspect of my own journey to purpose, as well as the stories of others who have walked the same path. Fear and doubt can place a lot of uncertainty in our minds, but here's what's true. You are needed. Your story matters. Wake up. Rise up. Together we can. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. We are here for another episode, and today I want to talk to you about getting comfortable with discomfort. So this has been yet another crazy week in our world right now. So on top of the pandemic that we've been facing, there's now been this uprising of anger against racism, and with extremely good reason, of course, following the murder of George Floyd in the USA. And I can feel that there is so much fear and uncertainty and discomfort around the world right now on all sides. So I thought this would be a really good topic for today's episode. Also coming up this week, you'll notice at the same time as this episode coming out, there is a 2-part episode coming out with Maya Riaz. Maya is a celebrity PR agent, a celebrity manager, who has obviously seen through her clients the negative effects of trolling on social media and what can happen when people forget that they're dealing with other human beings. So all of these conversations are obviously linked and are all going to feed into each other. But for this episode, this short soundbite, I wanted to talk about getting comfortable with discomfort, because I think we've been conditioned to feel that when we're uncomfortable, it's something bad that we need to get out of quickly. And sometimes that's the case, right? I think this is a difficult topic because sometimes being uncomfortable is a sign that you're somewhere you shouldn't be. It's even sometimes a sign that you're not safe. So this is definitely not a broad statement that will be applicable in all areas. But there are a lot of areas of our life where we feel discomfort and then we try to ignore it or we try to move away from it, when actually sitting with it is what we actually need to do for the growth, for the expansion, for the lesson that we are being asked to learn. And so there are a few realizations I've had this week, and one is that discomfort isn't always something to be avoided, like I just said. And I think the conversation that has been had this week that is, and I want to be clear, this isn't just a conversation that's arisen this week. The conversation has been ongoing for our whole lifetime. It's just that now people are actually being heard and we are being asked to listen. And it is uncomfortable as a white woman to be told that I've been brought up with racist tendencies and that it's so deeply ingrained that I can't even see it. It's super uncomfortable, of course. But all you need to do is take a moment to just stop and listen. And I think what I'm saying now will serve you, whether we're talking about an enormous conversation like racism, or whether we're just talking about your day-to-day relationships with your family and with your friends and other people. Sometimes when you're uncomfortable, the thing to do is not to retaliate. The thing to do is not to snap back. When we snap back, it's our desire to get comfortable again very, very quickly. And what the conversation this week has highlighted is that sometimes, in order for us as white people to be comfortable, it's making other people very uncomfortable. And that's a very mild way of putting it. But like I say, I feel like that is relevant, even when it's not about this big discussion that we're having right now. And discomfort isn't always something to be avoided. So I think on that point, what I've learned this week certainly is that not to be so quick to get myself out of an uncomfortable feeling, to really sit with it and ask myself, why is this uncomfortable? Why is this making me uncomfortable? And what can I learn from this? What can come from this discomfort? Now, again, I want to be clear. I'm not talking about any situation where you might feel that you're in danger or that you're in any way in an unsafe environment. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about, even conversations with friends. This has happened to me over the years where discussions have flared up and the conversation has become uncomfortable because suddenly everybody isn't agreeing, and suddenly something that you might believe, deep in your soul that is familiar for you feels not familiar and unsafe to somebody else. And over the years, like I say, it's been this habit of trying to get back to comfort, desperately trying to get other people to see it our way, desperately trying to get people to agree with us, or even, cutting people out of our lives who maybe don't see something the same way as us because it makes us uncomfortable. And I'm saying that perhaps that isn't the best way forward. In fact, I know it's not the best way forward. If we really want to overcome segregation and, this idea of a split where one group of people gets to be okay and another group of people has to suffer for that, the only way to come through to the other side, I think, is for everybody to get a little bit uncomfortable, right? But when we're talking about racism, I believe it's the job of us as white people to really feel that discomfort, because to be honest, black people have been feeling that discomfort their entire life. And it's time for us to get uncomfortable about that. Another realization I've had this week, which is all tied in, is that perception is powerful, and it can really be the difference between action and inaction. So again, this is about how you perceive something, and I just think we're being asked to challenge our own perceptions of the world. So again, I can only speak from my perspective, and from my experience. I can't speak for anybody else. But up until this week, I was bumbling along quite happily in my life. Yes, absolutely, there were challenges. I had, challenging things to deal with, and days that felt good and days that didn't feel so good. But what's been highlighted for me this week has completely shifted my whole perception of the world. And I've been naive to believe that it's easy, or not easy, but I've been naive to believe that anybody can reach this freedom that I talk about all the time. I still believe it's possible, but I'm seeing it from a completely different perspective. And when I say that perception is powerful and it can be the difference between action and inaction, I could have chosen this week to perceive this situation from a different place. I could have chosen to look at it and say, well, it doesn't directly affect me, so why do I need to get involved, right? That perception would have led to inaction on my part. The belief that it doesn't really affect me directly, there's enough to worry about in life, why do I have to take this on, yada, yada, yada. That perception would have led to inaction on my part. But my perception has been changed because I was willing to just stop and listen this week. And I'll be honest, there've been early on in the week when all of the posts started coming up and there was a whole conversation around, leaders like Marie Forleo, who haven't, well, first of all, some people haven't spoken up at all. And then others that have spoken up have done so in a disappointing way. And this isn't about shaming anybody. This isn't about saying, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that. I'm sure that how I've shown up this week hasn't been perfect. I think it's the lack of willingness to see where we might be wrong. That's what's got people's goats up more than anything else. And through those conversations and those posts and me seeing that this week, it's urged me to take a different look from a different side and to see things through a different lens. And because I'm now seeing things through a different lens, I have been led to action. And this isn't about patting myself on the back and going, oh yay, for me, I'm taking action. It's not. It's really just, I've been blown away this week at my own ability to shut up and listen, because that really isn't a trait of mine. Like, I am a very reactive person. I'm very strong in my beliefs, and probably quite arrogant about it, if I'm honest. So it's not like me to be confronted with something like that and then ask myself, how can I see this differently? How can I, see this from another side, when it doesn't appear to directly affect me? And that's me being completely honest. But by the grace of God, and for some reason this week, I have felt led to do that. And I feel like I've had my eyes opened. And on the one side, it's really easy to feel so helpless when there's such a huge situation that needs to change. It absolutely needs to change. It's very easy to see that from a place of, what can I do? I'm one human being. But that's going to lead me to my third point. Every human being has the power to change the world. They really do. It's just we don't perceive that a lot of the time. We don't know that. And I'm saying that to you in this episode. Normally I would say something like that from a place where I want to empower you to go out and live your life. And I still want you to do that. I still want you to know that you're powerful. I still want you to know that you get to go out and change the world through your gifts, and that the more you own who you are and the more that you really honour all of the things that make you you, you get to change the world. None of that has changed. But I think it's very easy in the face of something huge like racism, it's very easy to look at that and go, but I'm one human being, what difference can I make? And this is a perception. That's just a belief. If you think you can't make a difference, you're wrong. There's a great saying about mosquitoes and the fact that I always quote things wrong. It's something like, if you think that one person can't make a difference, or if you think that one small thing can't make a difference, have you ever been in a bedroom with a mosquito? It's something like that. It's basically saying that obviously a mosquito is tiny, and yet if you get stuck in a room with one, you bet your ass you're going to get bitten and it's going to be uncomfortable, right? Every human being has the power to change the world. George Floyd is changing the world. And it's through tragic circumstances and not anything that any decent human being would ever wish upon anybody, but through what has happened and what the ripple effect that has had. It's going to change the world as long as we are okay with being uncomfortable for a while. As long as we are willing to say, okay, maybe how this was moving forward is not right. It's not how it can continue to move forward, because so many people in the self-development world even and online are talking about this idea of freedom, this idea that we can live a life of freedom. I see it all the time. I see people selling their programs and their courses about all kinds of different things, and the end result is always the same. It's always some kind of freedom, whether it's financial freedom or freedom from, toxic relationships or whatever it may be. Freedom lies at the root of what we all want. But the truth is, none of us can truly be free if a section of us can never be free. It's not, for me personally, it's not enough for me to have my freedom if it comes at the expense of somebody else not having theirs. To me, that isn't freedom. And I know I'm not the only one that thinks that. And it's that drives me forward in my imperfect action. And so you know, however the events of this week have hit you, and I know that people listening to this are probably going to have some different ideas about that. I'm just saying that's okay. You know, we don't all have to agree, but can we all just take a moment to recognize that freedom is what we ultimately all want, and at what cost? At what cost are you willing to have your freedom? You know, would you be willing, if your freedom was going to cost the freedom of someone you actually know, then how would you feel about it? I think it's so easy to feel removed when it may not be your own brother or your own sister or your own best friend. But can you think for a second how you would feel if it was? Would you still want that freedom if it meant that your brother couldn't have it, or that your mum couldn't have it, or, you know, anybody else that you love, if they couldn't have it? Then would you be choosing it? Or would you be saying, well, I still want it, but I want it for all of us, and what can that look like? So there's a question and prompt again for this week. It was something I decided to do from last week's episode. I thought it would be really good to have this framework. As I said last week, I don't know how long this will last, but for now we're going with it. So each episode like this, I'm going to be asking you a question or a prompt that I just want you to sit with the idea that perhaps it will get you thinking in a new way, or in a different way from a new perspective, for the benefit and growth of all of us. And so that question is, what is your own discomfort trying to tell you? How can you lean in from an empowered place? So what that means is not getting butthurt about the fact you feel uncomfortable. This is where so many people are getting stuck. They just feel the discomfort, and then they go off on a tangent about how awful it is that they feel uncomfortable. And then they get on a mission to try and feel comfortable again. And what I'm saying is, that's going to skim the issue in a lot of cases. Not in every case, but in a lot of cases, that's going to have you skimming the issue. When you're too worried about the fact that you're uncomfortable and too bogged down with how do I get comfortable again, you're going to miss the point of why that discomfort was showing up in the first place. So what is your discomfort trying to tell you? That may be related to a world event, as I've been speaking about, but it might not be. It might just be related to something in your own life that you've been doing. It could be, for me, discomfort often shows up, and we don't always call it discomfort. Sometimes we call it anxiety. Sometimes we call it stress. To me, those are all forms of discomfort. And in my own life, you know, discomfort or anxiety, stress, etc., has shown up when I've been trying to continue doing something that is no longer aligned for me to do. And again, this all feeds back in. This all comes back to our quest for comfort. It's our quest for familiarity. And on our quest for familiarity, we often keep ourselves stuck in a situation we don't actually want to be in anymore, but we subconsciously think we do want to be there just because it's familiar. And what is unfamiliar is scary to us because we don't know what lies on the other side of that. So asking yourself, what is my discomfort trying to tell you? What is my discomfort trying to tell me? And if discomfort isn't a word that you resonate with, then maybe stress or anxiety would be a better word to use. You know, use the wording that works for you. But ask yourself just for a minute before you go skipping down the path of, oh crap, I feel uncomfortable. How do I feel comfortable again? Maybe stop for a second and ask yourself, what is this trying to tell me? What am I to learn from this? And nobody is expecting you to have the answers. So your first response is likely going to be, well, I don't know. I don't know why I feel like this. But actually you do know. You do know. It's just that often the answer it's not what you want to hear. In my own life, the answer has often meant that I've had to let go of something that's going to be uncomfortable to let go of. You know, when I realised that my first marriage wasn't right for me, that was massively uncomfortable. Because even though I knew in my heart that it was the wrong thing for me and therefore the wrong thing for the other person involved, it was all of the worry about how are our families going to react, what are my friends going to think, how's this going to affect every other person. And if you're somebody who constantly worries about other people and is always trying to please people, as I have been, and I'm not saying that again because I want a pat on the back, it's actually been a bit of a thorn in my side for years, because I've actually put the welfare of other people before my own happiness. And when we do that, we're just denying our own ability to live a life of true fulfillment. But, you know, it's the point I'm making. In that moment, I knew I wasn't supposed to stay in that marriage. And I absolutely could see what a shitstorm that was going to kick up. And I'm just saying that, you know, in so many cases, I think people don't choose to go down that path. They don't choose to go down the road that's uncomfortable because it's uncomfortable, and not just for them. They don't want to be responsible for making other people feel unhappy or feel uncomfortable. But actually, when you allow yourself to go through that, what lies on the other side of it is so worth it. It's so worth it. And it's how I feel about this whole situation now as well. So what is your discomfort trying to tell you, and how can you lean in from an empowered place? What that means is, how can you be okay with just staying there for a second, but feel empowered in doing so, knowing that sitting with that discomfort is actually going to serve you and the rest of the world. Let's not make a small point of it. You know, it's going to serve the entire world if you can just move through that discomfort, if you can just allow yourself to come through it rather than trying to avoid it and getting around it some way. So I would love you to use that prompt. I'd love to know what comes up for you when you do. So do get in touch. Don't forget, you can join the Facebook group, Wake Up, Rise Up. You can go and post in there. Also, in that Facebook group, I go live every Friday evening at 8 p.m. UK time. So at the moment, that's BST. I go live 8 p.m. every Friday to do intuitive readings for people. So it's a Q&A as well. So you can show up, you can ask your questions. But if you want to just show up and tell me what came up for you, it may be that you need some support following what does come up for you. So come and find me on that thread. It's a live stream, so you can a live stream as opposed to a live stream that's not live. But you can show up and you can give me your feedback there, and I can coach you through the next stage if that's what you need. So just to finish off this episode, I have a little mantra for the week. So a little affirmation that I would love you to take on if you feel that it's going to be helpful. And this week, the mantra is this: I am not afraid to feel uncomfortable. I embrace the opportunity to grow. And that's it. I am not afraid to feel uncomfortable. I embrace the opportunity to grow. And I want you to say that every time you can feel discomfort in whatever situation that may be, and allow yourself to see to the other side of that and what that's going to lead to. And that's it for this week. Go and check out the 2-part episode with Maya Riaz. It's fire. We talk all about, well, first of all, her amazing job as a celebrity manager. So that in itself is so interesting. But we talk about trolling, the negative effects of social media and online trolling, and the fact that people can become keyboard warriors when they realise, or when they don't realise, there's a actual human being on the other side of the comments that they're making. And then, of course, we get into the conversation around racism and how we feel we can move forward through that. So it's an absolutely powerful episode. So powerful, in fact, that I've had to split it into 2 parts. So all of those parts are coming out today, along with this episode. As always, I would love to know what you think. Go to Apple iTunes, leave me a review, give me a rating. Let me know what this podcast is doing for you. And please, please, please share with everybody that you know. I'm on a mission to get this message out to as many people as possible, and I need your help to do that. So please share this episode if there's been anything in it that you have found it useful. And like I said, come and join me in Wake Up, Rise Up in the Facebook group. I would love to hang out with you there. Just before I go, I'm so excited to let you know that I was trying to think what day we're on. So starting on Monday, it's Saturday right now. Starting on Monday, the 8th of June, enrollment is opening for my new program, which is called the On Purpose Mastermind. I'm not going to waffle on about what it is here, but I'll put a link in the show notes. If you're interested to know more about that, go ahead and click that link. You can also access at the moment for free my 5 days to spiritual purpose program. So I ran that live this week. It was just going to be a really short kind of 5 tiny prompts each day kind of vibe. It turned into an entire program to set you back on your path of purpose. So if you've been looking for the purpose in your life, if you've been thinking, I need some help in this area, you can get all of those videos. You can get full access for free currently for the next week. After that, they're going to be going up for sale as a bundle on my website. So grab it now before it has a price whacked on it. Go and get that training. It was so powerful. I really felt that the message was coming through and not from me. So I encourage you to check that out. There is a link below in the show notes for that as well. In the meantime, have a wonderful week. I'll be back again next week. Lots of love. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to connect with me further and the awesome community that this podcast is creating, then come and join me in my free Facebook group, Wake Up, Rise Up. Every Friday, you can join me for a live Q&A in that group, and the links to do that are in the show notes for this episode. If you love the show, please leave me a comment and review on iTunes and share with anyone you know who might love it too. In the meantime, have an awesome day and keep shining. It's time. And here we go. It's time for a cheesy sign off. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to join me and my awesome community in our free Facebook group, Wake Up, Rise Up, go and check out the link in the show notes below. Don't forget, every Friday you can join me in that group for a live Q&A, and I also stream that on Instagram. All of the links you'll need are in the show notes for this episode. If you loved the show, please go to iTunes, leave me a comment and a review, and share with anyone you know who might love it too. And in the meantime, have an awesome day and keep shining. It's time.